Do you want me to ask the questions?
No, just I would like you to answer the questions.
Oh gosh.
So fellow traveller says, "Hey team, it's great to have you with us. Firstly, can you tell us how the idea for the Hearth and Harbour came together?"
Well, you have your professional history. What made
loving cozy experiences, but recognizing that quite often the narrative doesn't go as deep as we would like. Of course, we'll be biased because we work on games that are narrative forward. Wanting to have a mechanically cozy experience that just had a little bit more narrative edge and a bit more narrative depth, and set in our universe as well, I think is quite important. I think that it has given us license to kind of sculpt the lore into this deeper, more meaningful thing.
Well, I specifically remember that. So obviously, the Pale Beyond was based on several expeditions, but predominantly Shackleton's sort of trans-Antarctic endurance expedition, and the account by Alfred Lansing. And one of the most sort of notable aspects of that, I remember coming across when we were doing our original research, was that you had about half of this crew survive one of the most daring feats of human whatever, and survived against all odds, only to then immediately miss the first half of the First World War, come home and immediately sign up and die in the trench for no reason at all. Yeah. And that was something that was inherently tethered to the sort of the Pale universe. And I know there was discussion initially about us maybe doing something vaguely related to the First World War, but then I do remember us sort of, and especially after discussing with the team, not wanting to do, because in Pale we got away with doing something that wasn't inherently combat driven.
Yeah.
Inherently like
the tension,
mechanical violence.
Yeah. The tension and the friction doesn't come from like premeditated PvP style. Yeah.
So I think I remember discussions about because this at least led to the sort of the wartime setting for the game.
Yeah,
but,
I think our version of a war game would just be Blackadder Season 4.
Pretty much.
Just people hanging out in the church.
Yeah, but I think with Pale, we realised that I think the secret sauce is the fact that every character is a fully fleshed out character, not just a faceless, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think given your experiences in sort of hospitality management, which is also how we first met, but I think thinking about a more interesting and otherwise less covered angle of a game set during a war, of what happens to civilian populations, and what is a sort of a player fantasy that could express similar levels of sort of maybe management mechanics, stress and anxiety, but also be more about, the effects on just the normal everyday person.
At a very surface level, there being a war that changes the availability of things, it changes the price of things, introducing things like rationing and differing attitudes about the conflict and the politics that surrounds it. I think that in and of itself makes for interesting mechanics.
Yeah. But I think I was particularly interested, especially when I joined the project, of trying to consider how we could deliver that kind of idea of every customer is actually a character in the city and feels like a full character, and we're not scoping down to we're retaining a relatively high customer pool, but also we're still delivering on their characterization. And then I think through the characters slowly building and painting a picture of a city and a culture, and we took a lot of inspiration from early 1900s Belfast as well.
I mean, I think that's one of the strengths of Pale.
Bless you.
I'm so sorry. At the very start, James mentioned something about it being at least like a little inspired by cozy games. I think that the way that we approached that was, well, first of all, we didn't set out to make Pale a cozy game at all, but we found that at least for the start of the game, people kind of felt like it was a bit cozy to be on the ship, but it was only cozy because of the contrast. So like if the whole point is that you're like creating a space for people to like feel welcome, which is the point of the restaurant, that only matters if there's something to be cozy against.
Yes.
If there's like contrast there, because that's what makes it interesting. Is the like, all right, everything sucks, so I'm gonna try and make something good out of it and make like a safe space for people to have somewhere to go when they maybe don't have other places to.
Yeah, you need a blizzard outside for your mug of hot cocoa to feel.
Literally, like it's not. If the outside is cozy, then the inside is not cozy.
But we think there'll be a really interesting and slightly surprising video game at the end, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I quite strongly feel that you don't get to choose whether you put yourself and your experience in art that you make. It just is. So, yeah, I think there's something special in there with Hearth. Sincerely, I think we are all of a certain personality type that we love, and we're softies that want to draw pictures and pick notes and tell stories, and we had to fight really hard for the right and the space to do that, and so it feels earned more than anything else I think any of us have done, really.
It's no secret that running a restaurant in real life takes a lot of work and dedication. How have you translated that experience into the game?
So, I'm coming at it from more the angle of trying to keep a small business afloat for most of my 20s. I've been going out of business for 10 years. But Tree, you have a lot more sort of... I mean, I've worked in hospitality, but mostly as a tour guide or in clubs, but you have a lot more direct experience in the actual kind of food service industry.
It's almost a misnomer to call it the food service industry, which is a gag, because it's like the people industry, really, right?
Yeah.
You know, you can go anywhere and have a beer. I think whenever you go to somewhere that's special and interesting, it's about the experience that you get. You know, the staff and the ambience and the setup of the room is all designed carefully to make you feel comfortable and worth spending your own money on. You know, like you're worth it. It's totally, come in, you know, do it. Oh my gosh, you're absolutely worth treating yourself to a Negroni at lunchtime. Do it, girl.
Yeah.
So finding ways that we could make sure that the people bit of hospitality was at the forefront, and so it feels like with Hearth, the way that we're kind of demonstrating that complexity. First of all, everything is downstream from things outside of your control, which is, I think, speaks loudly and proudly about what it's like to actually run a business. Is that you're always downstream from decision makers that you don't have a hand in any part of it, and it's about being able to be agile and move and adapt to a situation. So I guess the way that we're expressing that is that. Even when it comes down to buying your stock, it's about developing a relationship with the vendor. And then that is mirrored to a certain degree with customers. You know, it's about developing a relationship with the customers. And how those relationships develop, that then creates this ripple effect throughout the rest of the experience, whereby, you know, you'll have access to different social threads to pull. Certainly by developing relationships with vendors, you'll have access to little workarounds for some of the world's problems, like, you know, rationing or shortage of food. And without wanting to, you know, sound too much like hyperbole, I feel that the best way that we're trying to reflect the complexity of the, you know, going out of business for 10 years, for example, is by every small system affects every other small system in some way. You know. Yeah,
so a lot of the actual more kind of technical nuts and bolts design is following on from some of what we learned when we did Pale, specifically the loyalty system. I think it's important. We knew pretty early on, especially after a lot of feedback Pale got, that we wanted this to be a turn-based game, and we wanted it to be sort of more strategy, tactics, and deterministic outcomes than a, like, you know, overcooked timer frantic stress machine. And I think especially as the design kind of progressed, we have all these different systems, and we have several different currencies outside of money. Money does exist, but we also have individual favor as a currency that you have with every single vendor and customer and character that you can meet with the game. And you also have, you know, your inventory in terms of your furniture layout for your restaurant, and you know, obviously whatever ingredients and recipes you have, or whatever perks your character has. I think we have a wider smorgasbord of modular bits with a bigger cast, and it's building the game so that over the entire year that you play it, all of the resources you're getting from these different things, all the relationships you're building, do you eventually hierarchically build up to a final payoff where it feels like everything you did in the game, whether it was a dialogue choice you made or a resource trade-off that you made, has added to the final outcome of what the game's kind of ending is. It's something people really liked about the Pale Beyond, and it's something we're trying to do in this game as well, but in a different way. When it comes to specific mechanics, though, for like during designing a menu for that day, and mechanics for instance, for individual customers, so that they feel unique from each other and have individual traits that affect how they behave in service. We spent a lot of time chatting to a lot of people in the sort of the local hospitality industry in Belfast. It's actually been very fun going to different people and being like, tell me about your biggest melters. So it's been fun, like, interrogating people, being like, well, tell me about your best or worst customers and all the different sort of customer stereotypes. So, and we've tried to sort of take some of that information and put it into the game loop. So that the characters feel distinct from each other, and the way they mechanically operate in service feels like it's actually representative of their underlying character as they've been written in the script.
Stress.
Yes, stress! Do you want to talk about, we literally put burnout in our game?
We put burnout in the game, which feels like a cool, fun prank that we've played on ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's a miracle that any game ever gets finished ever.
Yeah.
But and like we've all three of us at different stages have certainly dealt with the effects of stress and the management of stress, and
Can you still die from stress?
yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah, if you get too burnt out, you lose all of your action points and then you die.
yeah, you can die of a heart attack. But we knew the irony is, despite not wanting to make a game that was combat first, where you're attacking health bars, the way service operates is effectively a combat system.
Yeah.
But instead of health and killing things, it's all about stress accumulation and that resulting in positive or negative favor outcomes with customers, but also the player character and their chef potentially accumulating burnout points, which every time they get fully stressed out, they lose their maximum action points goes down by 1 point, and the only way to heal burnout points is actually to go to bed with no stress whatsoever. So we wanted burnout to work as a macro thing that builds up. If you don't manage it, it will it's something you have to take into consideration. But again, that feeds into the war effort, the war theming, and it feeds into what happens when your entire customer base starts to come in more stressed because of what is happening in the world that you have no control over. How do you adapt your strategy to not just look after your customers and make sure they have a good time, but also to look after yourself? And I think anyone who's worked on a small team under sort of deadlines with limited resources I think will be able to kind of find something in there.
Can you dive into the process of creating the game's protagonist, Kit Purcell? What elements go into making a compelling player character?
The biggest difference with Kit from the sort of protagonist of our last game, The Pale Beyond, in The Pale Beyond you never saw like a visual representation of your character, and you were in that sort of that kind of role-playing grey area of being able to sort of imprint on a slightly more abstracted out kind of character as they existed in the full roster. Whereas in this we have a defined, you can literally see who you are, and you're able to move them around as an avatar in a space. So that was a subtle reframing that we were dealing with, but I think after trying to develop the character initially as a blank slate, we realized that we needed inherent kind of dramatic stakes, that tied in with what we were trying to say about the world and what the sort of underlying messages of the game were. And we settled on you being an immigrant to early 1900s Belfast, or the early 1900s Looseport, the fake Belfast, and you're from fake Germany, Grauberg, during fake World War One, and did actually a fair bit of research into what was the experience of Germans in sort of the United Kingdom and Ireland during the First World War, I'm someone who moved to Northern Ireland when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I think if we're designing a city based off a lot of local history, that is very, very, sort of taken for granted by us because we've lived here our entire lives. But if we're trying to share this with the world and put it out on Steam and, get people from across the world to basically come and visit a simulacrum of an older version of the city that we actually live in, I think it's a handy way of both providing dramatic stakes that are relevant to the plot, the constant sort of Damocles over your head that the rent collector probably knows you're from Grauberg, and also the fish out of water perspective that allows us to onboard and align the player's lack of knowledge about the area with the character's lack of knowledge about the area.
Yeah. The next one, the game centers on the player's agency to make decisions that impact the wider community. Without spoiling too much, can you give an example of this happening in the game?
Yes.
Yeah, so like in a lot of every character that can be a customer in the game is somebody that you can form a relationship with and like develop friendships with. And they all have their own like little kind of a quest line that you can you as the player act as a kind of confidant to them as they like navigate some kind of problem. And one of the ones that we've teased in the trailer a little bit that is very affected by the macro narrative is this like very boisterous young man who's all like patriotic and he's kind of excited about the war and he's going to these like little soldier training camps and getting ready to fight.
Yeah, doesn't know you're from Grauberg.
Doesn't know you're from Grauberg. You can tell him.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know where you're from, but is very much like, I hate those guys, I'm gonna go kill a bunch of guys, and you as the player can you get to say what you think about that.
Yeah.
But his questline essentially manifests in he develops like a friendship with one of the other boys at the soldier camp and is like, this guy is not gonna make it through the war. My friend is soft, he's not gonna make it. And that eventually culminates in his friend and himself trying to dodge the draft.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal and a kind of a crime.
Yeah.
And you as the player are given the option to help or not help him.
Yeah.
So like helping him it might put you at risk. Like if your restaurant is searched, for example, for somebody, you could get in massive trouble for hiding a dodge drafter. Your past as an immigrant could be exposed. So it does put you at a very high risk to help this kid, but if you don't, then he will get sent off to war, where his fate is variable. He may or may not survive. But that is the one that is most tied to the war.
I mean, there's a few other examples.
There are other ones as well, yeah.
I think...
the rest of them are a lot more... some of them are more based on, like, someone is self-actualizing.
Yeah, I would also say outside of those more narratively defined moments, the most sort of agency the player has when it comes to decisions that impact the wider community is really all about how are you going to spend your time outside of service?
Yeah.
Who are you going to spend the precious time you have outside of actually doing your job, getting to know more? How are you going to be prioritizing your menu and the design of your restaurant around specific characters? Who are you going to spend your valuable time and action points to specifically invite to visit your restaurant to make sure you're really doubling down on them? But I think we have a bigger cast than we have then the player isn't necessarily going to have the chance in a single run of the game to fully get to know. So I think the real decision that's going to affect the wider community the most is going to be which sort of community are you building around yourself specifically. And
who you choose to invest your time into.
And also how well because you could, if
you could be sort of friendly with a lot of people or very friendly with a few people. Like you can stack your favour in different ways.
And I think the real challenge is like, have you built a strong, have you integrated with the local community well enough to save your own skin, basically. So I think without going into too much.
Yeah, like, are you well liked enough that people will have your back?
Yeah.
Or not.
100%.
The story takes place in the seaside harbour town of Louthport. What are the qualities of the town that make it special and unique?
I was at the Ulster Transport Museum on Saturday and I saw an early 1900s tram from Belfast and recognised it and went, "That's in the game." Ethan put that in the game. Yeah, no. I think loads of the Luthport is designed. It's like a fantasy version of 1900s Belfast, and Ethan has put a lot of time and effort into designing even literal layers of sediment.
At the very beginning, Ethan and I had long conversations, namely about two cities, namely, and so initially we talked about one of the exciting things about London for both of us was the fact that, as Thomas said, you can see these layers. You know, you can look at old walls in London, and you can see right down to the medieval there.
Yep.
And then you can see when the Romans arrived and when the style of wall changed, and then
you can dig up a king in a car park.
Indeed, and you can see how this city was just built upon over and over and over, and there had been settlement there since Londinium until the greater city of London now. And being able to just sort of experience the history passively just by it existing by its very nature as part of the space was something that we really wanted to do, because that gives depth. You don't have to tell that, you just show it. You know, that was really important. I think the other thing too, when we're talking specifically about Belfast, Belfast was a city that boomed, particularly during industrialisation. And it fundamentally changed not only the shape of the city, but the shape of the country around it. And part of that is, I guess, I almost hate the phrase, everybody says it, the city is a character.
Belfast City.
But as cheesy as that sounds, we do feel that way. We're I think much in the same way that we talk about you can't remove your own voice from your own work.
100%.
I think in a funny way, using the city that we all live in as a reference meant that it just sort of naturally appeared that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of the struggles that exist within Belfast and the growing pains that the city experienced during industrialisation, that was something we wanted to reflect, I think. And it's something that you see, I think, in the environment designs. There's this mixture of the new and the old. There's this mixture of the, not quite agrarian, but certainly more relaxed industrialized living, a lot more handmade, and how that's butting up against the factories and the machines and the chimneys of whilst the city is kind of to a certain degree dragged kicking and screaming into the modern world.
Yep.
And so
Belfast is this sort of paradoxical place where it exists in this sort of midpoint between a city and a glorified big town, where it's like a city with no anonymity. Everyone literally knows everyone by like two orders of connection. It's one of my favorite parts of Belfast. But I think that was also something, when it came to some of the character writing, we wanted to kind of exemplify, was this implication that, if you make a splash, everyone knows. Everyone does know everyone. Everyone might not like everyone else, but everyone does know everybody else. As Ethan developed the environment design further, and we developed the full cast, we actually realized we had a cool opportunity. Rather than abstracting the cast and access to the cast out into just being done through like 2D menu design, we realized that we had enough of a city that we could actually give people kind of permanent locations around the city. And have the city feel full of life and full of character and full of people to discover, to then invite to your restaurant and then develop relationships with. And I think as soon as we were able to really start placing people around, it made the whole city click. And I think it's been cool in that the city the various locations around the city, and especially the various kind of sub locations and hangout spots, feel inseparable from the cast of characters.
The cool thing about having the whole game set in the same place is that it kind of stays the same, but things within the city change. It means that it's really meaningful whenever you have something like a festival in the park.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I know what this park usually looks like. No, it looks different. This is special.
Yeah.
There is this element of exploration in the Hearth and Harbour. Like, you can just walk off and go get lost for half an hour.
And that was one of the defining features of the original design. That's why there's a entire controller.
Yeah, to be able to explore, to be able to get lost, to be able to find little things that are maybe off the beaten path and you wouldn't expect, to meet people that maybe aren't plopped right in front of you, but maybe there's some interesting story there to find. And that's a thing that has kind of evolved in a really nice, natural way.
The Hearth and Harbour is set in the same world and time period as your previous game, The Pale Beyond. What led you to connect the two games, and how are the two different and alike?
Chicks and money. We know that money comes.
There are more girls in this game.
Yeah, and you can kiss them.
You can kiss some of them.
You can kiss them.
Some of them, not all of them, and you can also kiss some of the boys.
It's true.
There's a lot about Hearth and Harbour that is quintessentially is the wrong word, but there's a lot about Hearth and Harbour that is very different. And in fact, in a funny way, completely mirrored to Pale. You know, at the start of Pale, you start with the most you're going to have.
Yeah.
And it's this war of attrition. And as Entropy's arrow steadily sinks lower and lower, you eventually will end up with the least that, certainly potentially, you'll end up with the least that you have at the end of that game. In a funny way, with Hearth and Harbour, you're arriving new in a different kind of scary environment. You know, like a city is, in a funny way, comparable to the ice, in that the ice doesn't really care that you're there. And in a funny way, whenever you're a small fry in a city and you've just arrived, the city doesn't care that you're there. You're this little minnow in a huge pond.
Yeah, city's like a great machine.
Yeah. You're this tiny cog, sort of out of place, looking for your place in a funny way. But the interesting thing about Hearth versus Pale is that you start with nothing, and the goal is to build this thing versus starting with everything and seeing how long you'll get along. Having those mirrors, there's this moment at the start of Pale where you leave Luthport, you leave this city, and in a funny way, it's a thing that preyed on. Not like it kept people awake at night, but it was certainly a thought that passed through most of our heads at some point. Was, what's that city like, and what does that tell us more about these characters? How does the place where these guys are actually from, or certainly some of them anyway, how does that inform the different cultures that we see in the Pale Beyond? What questions can we answer that exist for us and also for players? How can we answer them without literally sitting down and making the Pale Beyond 2, which is not something we wanted to do at this stage. And I think in an interesting way, looking at the foundational stuff culturally, and looking at where the characters are from without speaking directly to them, but more looking at, you know, like the cultural base, how they socialize, the music, the architecture, the food. That helps us, I think, inform and make, in a funny way, it makes Pale a deeper experience because of the existence of Hearth and Harbour.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but yeah, for me especially, it's the biggest connection is the fact that the guys on the expeditions we researched missed the start of the First World War, in terms of, Tree's right, like a lot of the design of this game is trying to be orthogonal or kind of like invert patterns in Pale. Pale, you start with that same cast of characters, and then the narrative structure sort of like fans out, but is always on a fundamentally kind of linear arc in terms of moving between locations. Whereas this is just a completely lateral smorgasbord, and it's the player's responsibility to pick and choose and build and grow from that.
Nobody's stuck on the ice with you in this one.
Well, yeah, and I think a city is about as far as you can get from an Antarctic desert thematically. It's literally, there's too much life. People are living on top of each other.
You know?
Yeah, in Pale, you're stuck with these people. In a city, people are a little bit more discardable, I find. I think. And now, one of the things I like about Belfast is because everyone knows everyone, that there's redemption arcs. But I do think the fact that Kit has to go out and actually build these connections from nothing, and follow it up with being good at his job and creating a lovely third space for the community to inhabit during a difficult time. It's just, I think structurally, I like how this is an inversion of the last game. I think I think the intention behind that does come through the design.
That's good.
Apart from Kit, is there a member of Luthport that you're most excited for players to meet?
I am a big fan of the Gravedigger because he makes horrible puns about grave digging. No, I genuinely think I'm excited about most of the cast.
I mean, the Gravedigger is fun because he tells you about all the horrible ways people die in different locations of the city.
It generally is great.
Yeah.
The handsomest milkman.
Yeah.
Very handsome milkman.
Very handsome milkman. And yeah.
Pure of heart, dumb
Pure
of
of heart,
head.
dumb of head, you know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Milky, nice but dim.
Yeah, I feel like our writer was borderline cruel with how not very bright they made him, but he's very endearing.
He's very and he wants nothing but goodness and kindness for everybody. So
I'm
very easy to forgive.
I don't like them, but I love the writing of the scenes they're in of the rent collector. I think it's good.
I think
Well,
in a fun. I
the
think
villain.
I think in a funny way, it reflects a little bit of that Templeton stuff. You know, it's that classic.
Oh yeah, I think it's a lot less redeemable than Templeton.
Templeton got a redemption arc.
Well, in the sense that anybody that has. You know, like they always say, like the most fun characters to play or to write are the villains, right? They're the most complicated, they're the most interesting, they have the most... Sometimes the most grounded motivations, they've just got twisted at some point along the way, and... I think that's why Templeton's great, to be fair.
I'm very excited for everybody to meet the poet.
Actually, the poet
He's this really pathetic, Byronic character.
I think
I don't even think it's possible to offend him because he just assumes that you're being nice to him all the time.
I think
you're
it's
super mean to him and he's like, thank you for the lovely compliment.
Eric achieves something that's very difficult to do with the writing for the poet, which is authentically write someone misusing vocabulary, thinking they're being smarter than they are, and it not coming across as just bad writing. And I think that's a really difficult thing to get right, and I think Eric smashed it out of the park. I really like the poet. Yeah, I'm in this picture. Through the game's favour system, players can learn new recipes and open new opportunities by helping the townspeople. Why was it important to tell a story about community? And that's important during times of strife.
Literally, it's how we survive.
Yep.
I mean, everybody, whether you believe it truly or not, you're part of a community, large or small.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to like everybody in your community. You don't have to see them every day. But everybody, we live in societies all over the world, and we contribute in some fashion, positive or negative, always. I think every story is accidentally or deliberately about community because this is how we exist.
Yeah.
I think it would have been quite difficult to write it not about that.
Yeah. I think it's also no coincidence that between making the last game and doing this game, and we're sitting in the building right now, we have moved offices and set up our office as a co-working hub space for the local games industry, especially during a time when funding is pretty tight. We've, ourselves and other smaller game dev teams and like multimedia production companies, we've literally banded together in order to sort of help each other.
Weather the storm, son.
Yeah.
I mean, we touched on it before, how it's difficult or nigh impossible to not have your voice and lived experience appear in the work. I mean, you know.
Oh no, we made a community hub and then a war broke out. Yeah.
And last but not least, what's your favourite restaurant to dine in?
Well, that's extremely serious.
I think that maybe
we're going to disagree about this.
As the group of people who decided to make a game about food and running restaurants, it's actually a very serious.
Yeah, it's a very serious question.
Okay, so for me anyway, right? And I think so. My background is I was in hospitality for a very long time.
Yep.
Before moving full time into freelance audio and then ending up here. But one of the most important lessons learning about what hospitality is for is that we're selling experience. We're not selling pints of beer or plates of chicken. Those things are very important. They're the product, but at the end of the day, we're selling an experience. You know, we're selling the feeling. We're selling, that sigh you do after a good meal after you leave, and the cold air of the car park hits you, and you're like, oh, can't wait to like tell somebody about that. that feeling. So for me, there's a couple of restaurants in Belfast that are pretty special and pretty important. But one of them is there's a modern Italian place called Copy or Copy.
Copy's great.
In St Anne's Square,
I
and
do not know how to pronounce it.
Copy. We say Copy, but it is it's a simple modern Italian menu, really experienced, good staff, excellent kitchen, and an impeccable wine list.
I mean, there was a Korean barbecue place in Amsterdam that I think about every week. It was fucking great.
I mean, that's a good sign. And again, I think that speaks volumes, because you're not even. Like, this was obviously years ago. Like, when were you in Amsterdam? It was a couple of years ago.
2 years ago.
Although,
in the same vein as that, I think one of my favourite restaurants, not even because I necessarily think it's the best food ever, but because it's got... the restaurant I've probably got the most positive memories associated with for a period of time is probably the old Chinese buffet that we used to work on top of.
Oh my God, wow.
Steamboat.
Yeah. Yeah, oh man, Steamboat is pretty special, and it has that nice combination of really good quality food, nice but rude staff.
Yes.
And they're open till like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and they have a secret karaoke place I've finally since been to.
Secret karaoke.
Yeah. Jess?
Camille Thai Spice Bag.
I love Camille.
Camille Thai do a beautiful vegan green Thai curry spice bag. It rocks my world.
Pretty good.
Oh my word, yeah.
For spice, yeah.
Every time I order, I'm so excited to order it. There's also a great Chinese on Ormer Road that just fill a pizza box full of Chinese food.
Oh.
It's so good.
What's the place?
It's always the places that are dingy and only take cash.
Oh, man.
Those are the best places.
You know what there is in Belfast, actually, which is quite cool, and I love that this is a trend everywhere now. I mean, we're all copying London, realistically, is, a load of shipping containers on an old car park, and then suddenly you have, like, a smash burger place, you have, like, a place doing burritos, you have a place doing pizza.
Yeah.
And that has been a trend for a good couple of years now in Belfast. That sort of setup in... Oh, my word.
Oh, Jumon's so good.
There's actually a plethora of brilliant restaurants in Belfast now that we're thinking about it.
Anytime anyone visits the city, like if they're from somewhere else, I always bring them to Maggie's.
Yeah.
Maggie's is like...
Maggie's is the quintessential Northern Irish place where it's all breakfast food all day. The hangover queues are marked on the menu as this is as good as a hangover queue, and all the staff are mean to you.
Yeah. I used to get that when I was years ago when I was a tour guide, and the food was significantly worse here. I'd always have like people come in over me like, I really want to sample the local cuisine, and you're like, mate, it's a burrito. but
it's Maggie's burrito with hash browns and sausages.
We do pints and we do breakfast food, and the seafood's actually pretty good. And then everything else is like...
Well, yes, true. Morn Seafood Bar is pretty special.
St. George's Market... £2 for 2 fresh oysters, hangover cure.
Not a restaurant.
No.
But
this is going to progressively get more like, a guy in a field that I met once.
This is good. So I was in a field, ate a raw potato right out of the pit. Kelly's Cellars.
Oh yeah.
Do bowls of stew in the first half of the afternoon. And that it is the simplest thing, and just a pint of stout and a bowl of stew, and it'll make your day.
It's worth saying that Kelly's Cellars is like 1,000 years old.
Yeah, it's one of the oldest, not the oldest, but one of the oldest still running pubs in Belfast, and it's been around for eons. And the fact that the menu has not changed since pretty much since it's opened.
No,
it's still
since medieval times.
It's still pint of stout and a bowl of stew, but
like you're a peasant coming in from work in the fields.
Yeah. Like there's a reason that has stood the test of time. It's still great,
If they feed you stew, you have to get more pints to get drunk.
Yeah, it's a feedback
scheme.
loop. Yeah.
It's a scheme. Well, the stew has lashings of pints in it, I'm sure.
Well, you like what's that place? The Boneyard?
Totally, right, yeah. Like that kind of eating where it's like you have a bar which has reasonable coverage of anything that you might want to drink, and then just like a couple of good options of food. I think that's why this whole kind of food outdoor
Like
food
a
yard.
courtyard.
Yeah, courtyard sort of thing works so well. Like,
Anyway, that's been...
it's been great.
Does that give you everything you need, Jess?
Yeah.